Fortnite is risking everything with the weirdest season yet, and their plan is insane. They're betting big on these updates all leading to The Simpsons. But first we have the Battle Pass change, and I'm kinda scared. So we're just a few months away from Battle Pass skins coming to the item shop. Characters like Dr. Doom, Gwenpool, Mysterio, and War Machine will all make their shop debut later this year, and it's crazy to imagine that considering you could only get them in the second Marvel season. Fortnite is taking a massive risk by announcing that all future Battle Passes would no longer be exclusive after 18 months. It shocked everyone because Fortnite were the ones who popularized Battle Passes in the first place. But their biggest problem was these started to include crossovers. Yeah, exclusivity was the one thing holding Epic back. I mean, just imagine putting some of the most famous characters in the world in your game only for them to just disappear after 3 months. And Fortnite did this for 5 chapters. On one side, fans actually liked it because it rewarded them for being a dedicated player and it actually motivated you to grind a season knowing this was your only chance to get your favorite collab. It's kind of also the reason that Fortnite made so much money and why these seasons were such a big deal. Everyone was talking about it, asking each other, did you unlock Iron Man before the pass ended? Like, that was the nature of a battle pass. But as you know, Epic has now decided to shake things up. This wasn't just a huge risk because it could backfire, making battle passes feel useless and lowering sales, but it also meant that the skins that were exclusive before this change somehow have to find a way to return. That means players are already seeing a huge influx of reskins, whether it's the new OG pass just lazily bringing back old characters, or just Epic dropping a mashup skin that, you know, nobody cares about. There's some gems in here like the customizable Iron Man, Samurai Darth Vader, even the DCU Superman. We're also having to deal with the most lazy returns too, like FFC Neymar. I mean, what are we even looking at here? And now this is starting to affect the Fortnite crew. You see, at the start, this was just another way to show that you're an OG, getting exclusive outfits that would never come back after a month. So people would just buy a single month if they like the skin and then cancel it. Not bad, right? That's until Fortnite wanted to grab as much money as possible from us. They didn't want our $9, they wanted $100+ a year. So they introduced legacy styles. If you like the skin you got from the crew, you can now get a brand new edit style for it every month you stay subscribed. And now we're paying $9 for edit styles. This ensured people were just not happy with what they were getting from the crew. So Fortnite took an even bigger risk. They decided, let's just give you all of the battle passes. Sounded amazing, right? As always, it was just too good to be true. Unlike the pass where you'd simply buy it and get the whole month's worth of content permanently, now you had to stay subscribed to keep the pass. Yes, if you canceled your membership midway through a season, you would no longer be able to unlock further tiers. It's actually insane. This risk is somehow paying off for Epic. No one was that mad about it because they understood getting 3 battle passes, V-Bucks, and an exclusive skin for like $9. It's just way better than nothing. Fortnite is taking a lot of risks with cosmetics before the Simpsons season, but it's the gameplay which decides how many people log in at all. Since the start of Chapter 5, Fortnite went from Battle Royale and creative maps to a ridiculous amount of options. From ballistic to reload to festival and Lego, now the player base is more split than ever before. This worked for some things like reload, and for others, well, let's just say Epic lost a lot of money on rocket racing, which was quietly abandoned after just a couple of months. But this hasn't deterred them from coming up with a brand new mode, designed for one occasion, the return of Fortnite Mobile. Blitz Royale was a limited time mode that had everyone yawning at first. I mean, yet another game to keep track of. Well, to learn from the mistakes of rocket racing, Fortnite had one condition. It would only be around for 4 weeks before it was gone forever. Literally, the only reason this existed was for Epic to get back the millions of iOS players they lost in 2020. And in a surprise turn of events, what was originally a total gamble that took attention away from regular BR, well, it turned out to be a massive payoff. It was way more popular than Epic imagined, not just with mobile, but everyone else who loved how quick the matches were. So they extended it for a couple more weeks, seeing if this was just hype for something new to play or actual excitement about the mode. And this is when they realized they have got something here and made their biggest announcement of all that Blitz Royale was now permanent. So while this shows that their original gamble paid off, it just opened the door for an even crazier risk. Fortnite is now doing weekly themed events for Blitz ever since it came out. And now that it's permanent until at least 2027, they have to keep it updated so people don't leave. Add that to the teams working on Ballistic, Festival, Reload, Lego, and their upcoming Disney mode, and it's starting to look like Epic have a lot on their plate. So can they keep it up? Now, I need to highlight one risk in regular BR with the decision to completely overhaul mythics. You see, the very first mythic item in Fortnite was the Infinity Blade. Only one person could grab it in the whole lobby, and it was extremely overpowered, basically guaranteeing the W. It was so devastating that the entire game turned into a race for the sword, and nothing else mattered. It ruined tournaments, people threatened to quit, and it quickly became the most notorious item of Chapter 1. The backlash was so bad that Epic was forced to rethink their entire strategy around mythics. Since then, collab items have been freely added into the loot pool, designed so that anyone could find them. There's a ton of focus on balancing, make sure everyone could have fun, and just enjoy the crossover. But something changed in 2024 with the second Marvel season. Fortnite decided to take the risk and bring back the old style of mythics. If you wanted to truly play as the villain of the season, Dr. Doom, you could find his Ultra Armor, and only one person in the match could get it. Clearly, Epic didn't want everyone racing for it again like the Infinity Blade, that they had to learn the lesson, but they somehow made things 10 times worse. I'm not joking, I did the math. The Doom Island only had a 5% chance of spawning in your game in the first place. If you were lucky enough to find it, then you had to capture it, and by the time it spawned in, you'd already be in like the final 20, so you're fighting the best players in the lobby to grab it. So that lowered the odds even further, and the amount of time you spend waiting until the island spawns only to realize it wasn't Doom, and then had to try again, it was hours of work before you could even try to grab it. This was a pretty big failure for Fortnite. But that's when something interesting happened. They increased the chance of it appearing every weekend just to make it usable. So now we're at 2 times in a row that a one-time mythic was not enjoyed by fans. What was the next step? Well, when Godzilla showed up 6 months later, we were really excited to find out you could play as him. And yet Epic still didn't learn. Instead of making some kind of Godzilla live event where he'd work together to fight him, they kept going down the one-time mythic route. Just like last time, he didn't spawn every game. You had a 40% chance, which is still way higher than Doom, so not that bad. Except you would only be able to play as Godzilla for just a couple of minutes before it expired. He also had problems like bad aim, he had this glitchy laser beam, and he was really slow. If enemies damage you enough, you would get staggered, locking you out of doing anything while your 2-minute timer is still counting down. End result was another disappointing mythic. And now we're in season 3 where Fortnite has tried it again. This time it belongs to Superman, the Man of Steel. Think about it like this. He is meant to be invincible to pretty much everything but kryptonite. The first thing they fixed was the problem with people not getting him enough. It was easier than ever to get your hands on Superman's mythic, and you got to play as him for longer than Godzilla or Doom. Issue is, when the Man of Steel launched, he turned out to be weaker than your average gun. Epic was so scared of another Infinity Blade situation that when it came out, players were shocked at how much it sucked. Superman had barely any health, the timer was still too fast, and worst of all, his damage straight up did nothing. But instead of giving up hope, Epic came back to the table and they completely overhauled his mythic. We got way more health, more time to use him, faster siphon, and 71% more heat vision damage per second. It's here I think they found the sweet spot. After years of trying to get this right, sticking through all of the risky decisions, Fortnite has finally made a one-time mythic that was balanced. And I can't believe I gotta say this, but in the most surprising twist of all, they just decided to mysteriously remove it. We have no clue why it vanished. Is this a sign that Epic is finally giving up on the idea? We'll have to see. Usually, what seems like the obvious thing to do could eventually turn into a huge risk. Remember how Epic brought back the OG season for just 30 days and it resulted in like the highest player count the game had ever seen? Well, if you're working at Epic, you would obviously look at that and say, well, we should just make it permanent. And that's exactly what they did, and no one blamed them. Except for the first couple of months, this would turn out to be a huge disappointment. People were so nostalgic for the days of season 4 onwards, when the game had received a bigger player base, plenty of updates that fixed most of the issues, gameplay tweaks. It was just way better at the time. Well, Epic decided to risk it all by bringing back OG from day one. That meant for the first few months, the map was totally empty, with barely any weapons or things to do. It relied so much on nostalgia that people were just not buying it. And for anyone who wanted to experience the later seasons of Chapter 1, they'd have to wait almost a year. It has been so long, and we've only just got to Season 4 when the game started to really hit its prime. After so much patience, awkward OG passes, and plenty of feedback about how quote-unquote OG this mode really was, it looks like Epic's gamble might be on the brink of finally paying out. We have the remix version of the rocket launch event, and it's the start of more to come. Epic is taking their biggest risk, and in the coming weeks, we'll figure out if it was truly worth it. So let's talk about collabs before we hit the Simpsons event. It kind of feels like they're using these original OG events to keep storyline fans happy, while all the high-budget finales are collabs. I don't know if you've noticed recently, but pretty much every single live event since Fracture has been a crossover, like obviously besides Shogun and Daigo. From the Big Bang's insane reveal of LEGO Festival and Racing, to the remix finale giving us a concert full of of rappers, even had an entire event dedicated to Star Wars. This is the new direction of Fortnite finales, and it'll only continue this November with the Simpsons one. You could already tell this might be one of their biggest gambles of all. Live events are always the most important part of a season. Everything from the theme to the stories leading up to these, and it always brings in tens of millions of viewers. In the past, when Fortnite designed events like the Galactus battle, it had dire consequences for the rest of the chapter. We actually worked together to defeat a boss instead of just running through hallways until someone else beats them for us. But as we've seen from the Death Star event, Fortnite has changed this. Now it feels like they have no connection to the overall story of Fortnite. Sure, they're relevant for the season they're in, but once they end, it's like it never even happened. This risks alienating storyline fans and dedicated players who don't just show up for an event and stop playing. It's kind of made all the recent live events feel like intricate commercials for the next season. And you could already see it in the way they've changed the countdowns. Season 3 began only a few hours after downtime began, while the Big Bang was just an entire advertisement for the new Chapter 5 modes, one of which doesn't even get supported anymore. Obviously, Epic is taking this risk for one reason. The people who care about collabs versus those who care about the original storyline. I mean, it's like comparing a country to a village. And even though the reception to the Star Wars event wasn't that great, it was still a million times more positive than the reception to Fractured. So you can see why this risk is the best decision for them. It's also a great way for us to fully immerse ourselves into Fortnite's other big change, the introduction of mini seasons. Before these were around, the only collab season we'd ever got was Marvel twice. Fans really wanted more types of crossover battle passes, yet nothing was as big as Marvel to warrant an entire season. So Fortnite decided to adopt an idea they came up with back in OG, a 30-day pass that would go all out with the weekly updates. It was perfect for collabs. Then they started it off with Star Wars. I mean, what could go wrong? Well, this was their biggest risk of the entire chapter, giving them some of the lowest player counts they have seen in years. Why? Well, they decided to lean so hard into the crossover that they removed guns from the game. It was just blasters, laser rifles, and lightsabers, which sounds incredible to the average Star Wars fan, but this novelty wore off quick. Even when the season was just 30 days long, the fact that you had no choice but to play this was a deal breaker. The best decision would have been making this loot pool a separate mode called Star Wars Battle Royale, one that lasted the whole season and was truly made for the people who wanted to immerse themselves in the crossover. Except Epic knew that it wouldn't feel like a Star Wars season if they did that, so they took the risk. And now they're doing it again once the Simpsons get their own mini season later this year, and this is where Fortnite is truly risking everything. We've seen how the Star Wars experiment failed, how live event collabs might be doing damage, how battle passes and focuses on cosmetics are giving people burnout. All of these risks are bringing us closer to this Simpsons season, which could either lead to a colossal failure for Epic or a renaissance of Fortnite's metaverse. So my deep dive into exactly what's coming in the Simpsons season and why it's such a gamble is at the end of this video. But to really understand the bigger picture, you need to know that this risk all centers around the true future of Fortnite. It's the one that was created during the Big Bang event and has been slowly expanding year after year. Because after the Simpsons around the corner, its success is crucial to Epic's vision. Have you noticed what's in common with every single collab season? First we had Marvel, then it's Star Wars, and then the Simpsons. They are all owned by Disney. What we're seeing happening in Fortnite time and time again are actually trial runs for what Epic have been working on in the background. It's the Fortnite Disney metaverse, the biggest risk Epic will ever take. Billions and billions of dollars are being spent right now preparing us for this next era of Fortnite. That'll have hundreds of Disney characters, entire game modes, even real-life integrations into Disney World theme parks. This is big. And as they keep working on it, Epic is gonna keep experimenting and taking risks with our favorite characters so they could learn from it and use it to make this Disney collab amazing from day one. That's why you're seeing these risks lately, like how they decided to shock everyone with a Darth Vader AI voice actor in the Star Wars season. No matter how you look at it, there's nothing more risky than adding a James Earl Jones AI into your game from beyond the grave. Since then, Fortnite have been in trouble with the Actors Guilds over this, and they're expanding the AI tools for use in creative mode, but here's my theory. This first experiment was worth the backlash for Epic because they wanted to see if it had a place in their upcoming Disney metaverse. Think about it. If you want to talk to Mickey Mouse, interact with princesses, hear a conversation between Darth Vader and Mike Wazowski, it's going to be extremely expensive. I think if Epic continues to keep up these insanely risky decisions, AI might have a bigger role to play in the future than we think, whether that's for the better or worse. One thing is for sure, you can expect more gambles like this when the Simpsons get their season later this year. In fact, we already know what Epic's working on and why it's going to make or break the the future of Fortnite. So let's get into the Simpsons season. When it arrives this November, they're gonna bring an entire map with them. Just like when OG got a 30-day season, we are saying goodbye to the current island early. Instead, we'll be thrown on a reload-sized map that's gonna be a recreation of Springfield from the show. Now in the past, this has been a great success for Epic. People love new maps as long as they're well designed. Reload's the best example. While these are smaller islands, Fortnite has been hit or miss on a few of them and forced to bring back older ones on rotation because the player count keeps dropping. What that means is if Epic's version of Springfield isn't all it's cracked up to be, the entire season will suffer. But if it's amazing, the gamble will pay off big time. Then we have the skins. Of course, you could expect the classics like Homer and Marge, but it leaves you wondering how they're going to integrate Bart or Lisa, or really any of the kid-sized characters. In the past, they've given people like Morty mech suits, or just turned smaller people into back blings. So if they pulled this with the main Battle Pass Simpsons character, I don't think it's a risk Epic should take. That's especially if they decide to go a totally different route and give us adult versions of Bart and Lisa. Now that'd be a crazy decision. I mean, after all, we're lucky the season is happening after years of failed gambles. Remember when they decided to make Peter Griffin buff? That got so much attention and hate, but you could argue the risk did pay off because now they know exactly how to make good cartoon characters. And you can already see this when the Father's Day skins dropped. People love them, setting us up perfectly for The Simpsons. But I think Epic also has to learn from mistakes that the Star Wars gamble exposed. They can't make the season too heavy on Simpsons because it won't feel like Fortnite. But then they can't give us bare minimum content because fans will call them lazy. All of these problems I'm talking about are exactly what Epic has had to figure out over the past few months while making the season. By leaning into one aspect over another, they're automatically taking a risk. And most of these need to pay off so we can have confidence in the upcoming Disney mode. The Simpsons season has a lot riding on it, especially when it's the first cartoon theme we've ever had in Fortnite. Will it be a success or a failure? Let me know in the comments below. It's been Tommy, and keep it here on Top 5 Gaming.